Okay. This is supposed to... So last time, this didn't work at all. See if this comes through. Yeah, last time I was just streaming to nothingness. Yeah, I still don't know. Why did they change this around? Okay, this appears good, good. It looks like we're good. Alright. So, welcome. Oh wait. Let me pop out the chat. Chop out the pat. There we go. Alright, friends. So this is the 40% keyboard layout. The most requested thing for me to talk about. I guess that's close enough. I don't know. So here's the my Signum keyboard. It's a 3.0, so it's a 40% layout. And here is, excuse me, here's my logical layout here. And you can find this on my website. It's listed under something ridiculous. My updated 40% layout. It's actually pretty recently updated. This layout is something that I've been working on ever since I got into the smaller keyboards. And it's been something that changed extremely frequently. Like I would change it multiple times a day while I was working, just trying to tweak things and get things kind of dialed in. And this is the result of years of work. Now, the other caveat to this is not really necessary for most people, and I am abnormal in that this is rather complicated and that I change this somewhat frequently. So it's kind of settled down, so it's less frequent changing, but still, don't think that this is something to try to get to or something to try to achieve. Do what makes sense. You know, don't stress trying to make things more complicated, especially if it slows you down. Speed is king with the 40%, but speed is king in most things. It's more iteration times. So anyways, let's get started here. This is the top layer, Q. I chose Q here because, no, I'm just kidding. So some people are kind of disappointed to know that I run QWERTY, and in fact, I myself am also disappointed in that I run QWERTY. I have attempted to change to this audio might be popping. Hang on. Hopefully the audio is a little bit better. I have attempted to change to Colmac, and I messed around with Dvorak a bit. There's lots of flavors of Colmac, so there was lots of options there, but it never really stuck. And to be fair, you know, I never really gave it a 100% fair shake. You know, I didn't dive into it for 2 weeks or something and come out of it and decide. So QWERTY is just kind of there, man. The other thing is, I don't really have any desire to break my ability to work with other computers. I do a bit of laptop work and moving around a lot. And going to different stations at work, I find myself needing or using a QWERTY keyboard occasionally. So, you know, maybe it's a cope, but I just haven't really seen a huge need to switch over yet, or to put the time and effort into it. I think, frankly, if I were to spend a bunch of time on it, I would probably be doing something like, I'd probably be making my own, designing something based off of what I press over the course of a month and building from there. So, maybe not. QWERTY hasn't been a problem for me. I know other people have much better success, and you know, from the perspective of of efficiency, it's still workflow. You know, you're still moving less if you use something like Dvorak to type English. So, I don't know. Maybe I'll catch up to it one of these days. But let's focus more on these outer keys here. The amount of programming that I do made these keys very... Well, actually, let me bring this up first. So, there's no backspace on here. Well, there's a backspace and an enter over here, but it's in an extremely difficult to reach place. The reason I don't have a backspace or an enter on here is because backspace and enter fall under here, because it's very accessible on the first layer. And you know what, let's just start on the first layer actually. The first layer is probably the most important. So layer 1 is this button right here, this center thumb switch, and the opposite side is space. Now most people do like an enter or backspace over here. No, the first layer is the power. That's where you want to unlock all this stuff, and you might notice some redundancies. I'm just kind of messing around here. So initially everything was just JKL for arrows, so that when I needed arrows I just pressed down my thumb key here and I get arrows. And then things started expanding from there. I started playing around with, well, you know, what other buttons do I need to access? You know, once you get this limited keyboard, you start to realize what buttons you actually do use. So starting from a very simple standpoint and then growing from there, you know, it's like if you want to do a Control-Shift page down, well, hey presto, there's no page down on here. So where do you put the page down? Well, Control-Shift page down is down here. Or it's on layer 2 actually, page down, page up. But Control plus Shift plus layer 2 plus page down, page up is kind of annoying. So why not? Or it's Control Shift. Yeah, that's right. So why not make that a shortcut key? So Browser tab left, and that's actually Sheet, Excel spreadsheet left, and Browser tab right, or Excel spreadsheet right. So that's on layer 1. So when I want to flip my tabs, it's just these two buttons. And you can judge how often I do something by how close things are to the home row. With the somewhat exception of this JKL. I'm still kind of coming around on this. JKL is technically, you know, this should be moved over. Like this should be centered on the fingers, on the home row, like where you start out. But it's not, and it probably should be. The other thing, so here's my delete and backspace. They've been easy to get to, and here's my enter. And enter was kind of interesting because I put enter right here to begin with, and I didn't feel like I was. There's a mechanical motion of like reach and pop, like that's how you hit enter. You lift up your hand and you drop it down, and the idea that putting it immediately under my finger, like, kind of broke that mechanical, sensation. So I found that putting the enter up here was actually a lot stronger and easier to activate. So tab, I obviously use a keyboard, or use keyboard for moving my selection around than mouse. So tab is pretty prominently spaced on that home row. And alt tab, this is a combination of alt tab. It's just a quick tap. So it's a tap and release, so I can just switch between applications just tapping that button. And then a full-size alt, or a regular alt over here where control usually is. And that might be weird to some people, but I found that if you're holding down a modifier, it should be on a thumb, or one of your thumbs. And I have these palm keys, which are which do kind of the same, but they're basically used for holding things down. You don't want to hold things down on your pinky and start reaching over the rest of the keyboard. And again, all of this is just from experience, because I've pretty much tried everything. I've tried the control, the escape, but alt in particular has the benefit of being I don't know if you call them sticky keys, where when you hit Alt, you open up this context menu. And from within that context menu, you can use arrows to navigate, but only if you press Alt. So if you press Alt, you only have to tap it. You don't have to hold down Alt and then hit arrow keys to move around. Although you can, yeah. Although you can do, whoops, I don't know why I pressed that. Well, that's not right either. I guess I went back. Oh, I guess I alt-lefted. Sorry. Alright. So you get to, with Alt, you get to tap Alt and then press F or open those context menus that way. So you don't need to hold down Alt for hardly anything unless you want to page back, because I think the most recent update to the browser standard for page back is Alt left, which is kind of weird, but whatever. It doesn't matter. So Control, however, winds up being something that needs to be held down much more often. And you might get more use out of Alt than Control. Whichever one you use more should be in this position, should be right next to your thumb. You might see this redundancy here, or apparent redundancy. Well, it is a redundancy, but GUI, the point is to have GUI on both sides of the keyboard, so that when you do a key over here, you GUI with this hand. So you combine opposite hands to create that shortcut, rather than using the same hand and stretching extra muscles in the same hand. And that's why there is actually two shifts over here, because for a long time I only had one shift on the left, and I realized that combination was a problem. So ideally it's designed so that you combine these, so that you hold down a modifier key with one hand and then choose the other hand to select it. So if you're doing like a left parentheses or something like that, you should not be using right shift and pressing that right button with your right hand. So alternate your shifts. Let's see. So this is a feature of most of the open source firmwares, is the tap keys. So if you hold it down and then press another key, it becomes a modifier. But if you tap it once, it becomes a, let me see if that's set up. No, it's not set up right now. Okay, I might have changed it, but Shift plus the backspace is something that I've had for a bit. I don't use it that often, obviously, because I have a backspace right here, and this is kind of a hard to reach key that usually doesn't come up. So actually, this is part of the left side mouse assist layer. It's something that I do. Yeah, I think this is up to date. So the idea of the mouse assist layer is that when you're mousing with your right hand, as I am right now, you have access to some keys with your left hand. And part of that is just putting this on the first layer so that it's easily accessible. Having, if I'm working, doing graphical work, my mouse is over here. If I'm doing graphical work with my mouse over here, and I want to tap backspace real quick, well, normally you would reach across the keyboard and hit backspace, which is just a lot of motion, which is unnecessary. And then here, with my layout in particular, I have to hold down this function level and then press this over here to do backspace, so it's a little bit harder. So putting this backspace in a hard to reach place, or an out of the way place, is a little bit easier to be able to just hit backspace real quick to get out of something. Now, that's actually the reason why I've got these arrows right here, is because I've found that there's more situations where I need to have arrows on this left hand if I'm selecting graphics or something and I'm moving them around with the arrow keys. It's something I want to be able to do immediately with my left hand in the position it's pretty much already in. So without disturbing these ones, which have been here forever, I was able to squeeze in this arrow, this inverted T arrow group, and it was something that was not what I was expecting, and it just kind of came up and it fit, and I've been using it for a while and I really like it. So I'm just kind of surprised by that. What I normally did was activate this level 4, or this layer 4 lock, which is that mouse layer, so that you can see these are color coded as well, so it's easy to navigate. Now when you activate that layer, I get a blink because it's a locking layer. I don't know if you can see that. So it blinks to let me know that I'm on a locked layer, and from there I have arrow keys right under my home row. So it's a lot easier to get around, and then backspace and delete, and then the browser left and right. just making things easier to get around on. Now, you might notice this, well, this is actually, that's not right, that should be different. I do my best to maintain modifiers on the same, on the deeper layers, unless it's not possible. So, I think this is, nope, that's right. Okay, so the modifiers are more or less the exact same, pretty much whichever layer you're on, except where we can't activate them. So right here, control is normally right here to the left of the thumb, left of the left thumb. Now if I'm pressing down L1, I don't want to do one of these like rolling motions where I'm pressing down and also activating something to the other side, and I'm kind of mushing keys. So when I'm on layer 1, my control pops over here. And that's something it does break mechanical flow, but it has been something that I've adapted to pretty easily. So I don't know if it's a big deal, but generally, once that thumb is pressed, you want to black out the keys around it. Just try to keep it simple. And try not to stretch. This is, okay, let me try to focus here. So this is layer 2. These are GUIs. I explained why they were split. I had space. Here's my delete and backspace. Here's my enter on layer 1. This is, when I tap this, it's a space. It just does space. And that's something that is very useful in a variety of situations. You can try spacebar in a number of programs and see what it does. It just becomes very useful because a lot of people use it as a shortcut. So it was, again, it was something I wanted on the left hand so that I could, when I'm mousing around easily, just hit that spacebar real quick. Spacebar actually makes you makes the page scroll down, and you can actually shift spacebar to scroll up. Like I said, just try it in different places. The only key, see, I don't usually, oh, this is a duplicate key, so this is disabled actually. This is just my backslash, but I very rarely use this key. This is actually deactivated because I put a 2U key on it that has tons of glare on it, so you can't see it. There we go. But I mean, you could do the same thing over here that you do over here. I just have very little use for these keys usually. 40% is probably about as small as I can go. I could probably lose these keys and these keys, but that's probably it. I don't think I could do any more than that. As a programmer, I get heavy use out of these keys right here. And this was actually something that took a, oh, let me move that there. So it's just braces. This is something that took a while to figure out because, you know, you want a curly brace, you want square braces, and then you want parentheses. So easily accessed. So where's my parentheses? Oh, good question. They're right here. Let me scroll that so you can see it actually. So this took a long time to figure out what should go here or how I should handle these braces as a programmer, and this is the correct way. This is the most effective way, the most efficient way, and the most mechanically similar way. So it's hard to screw it up. As I've gotten out of Python more, I feel like I would probably switch these around. Maybe I'd put the parentheses on the top layer and the square and curly braces on the bottom layer. It's extra keys. You know, the reason it's like this is because you need to hold shift in order to activate the curly braces. So you're doing a combination key to get here. You're holding a modifier to get here. If I put this down here, I'm already holding this modifier, and then I have to hold another modifier in order to get to curly braces if I put them down here. So fewer modifiers is always better, or obviously combining them into one so that it's easier, because this is control. I think that's a control push shift, or it's a control page down, page up. I don't know. Anyways, I think that explains most of this. Everything else is pretty much the same. This tab, I could actually do away with this tab because I use this tab instantly. Like that's automatic, and you can see I've got some bonus pieces over here. So there's a tab, and then up here there's another tab. So there's room for moving stuff around. These blacked out keys are keys that usually they were previously shortcuts. Now they've been mapped to something else, but also like this key should probably remain blacked out. I don't know if I would be able to like hold that down and then curl your finger underneath and hit it, it's very inaccessible. It's a difficult key to get to. Now, speaking of inaccessible, this layer lock 6 over here is intentionally inaccessible. So it's something that's difficult to get to because it's something I don't want activated on accident. So layer 1 going to layer 6 is this plus this key down here. And then when I activate that, I get to a gamer layer, pro gamer move here, which is primarily just QWERTY, although I think I've done some IJKL arrows on this layer. And then pretty standard fare, this is probably, I think this is a caps lock, only time you're going to see a caps lock. And then space and escape and backspace, so kind of standard keys that you can find on a keyboard, very accessible and easy to read the instructions. You know, if you're remapping things, you don't want complicated keys to get here. And then this L7 is your totally normal number pad. So that was one of the things I had to figure out for gaming, is you often have to use these numbers, and you want to be able to use them with a modifier, you know, control plus the number or something like that, or shift plus the number. And the best way I found to do that was to, on your gamer layer, you press this button to the left of the thumb key, and now your fingers are on the home row of the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then 6, 7, 8 through 0, all the way up here. So that makes things very accessible. I haven't played around with it too much, literally played around with it too much. I probably should. I also got these keys transferred to arrow keys. I'll probably update that, but I was messing around with that with like emulators or something. So it's just kind of more convenient. The inverted T arrow configuration is way better than JKL for combination movements. And, you know, like I said, JKL technically, or HJKL technically could be, or should be moved over to directly under the home row, but, or, you know, directly under the fingertips. Let's see, we've got escape, which is popular. Play macro mute U. So I figured out these mnemonics pretty early on when it was difficult to remember what my 40% layer was. Saying like, you know, thinking in your head, what's mute? And then remembering U for mute has made things a lot easier. The rest of this is P for play and pause. And then volume up and down is just, I don't know, that's been useful. It's always been there. Hasn't been a problem for me. These are some character keys, special character keys that are accessible on the first layer, and that's primarily a programming tool. So you probably want something other than this on this layer. Maybe if you use exclamation or whatever, that might fit well here. The app key, use that pretty infrequently, but it's still there. So this is another thing. So this layer lock 4, when I want this left hand to work with my mouse while I'm mousing around, I can do that layer lock and then get down to here. So the intention is that this layer lock be used when I'm using these arrow keys or copy paste and backspace and browsing around. Basically, if I'm using this keyboard left-handed only. Now, if I'm not doing that, then I can hit the temporary layer by holding this down. And you can see the light still blinks for it because I'm in that layer. But once I do this, this hand is locked up. This hand's not doing anything. And then I get to use my right hand as for the mouse controls. So, hello? Well, that's interesting. So I might have disabled this actually. That's weird. I usually use the mouse. Obviously, I haven't used it in a long time. I can click the... Wait, no, I've done this. I've done this before. What's going on? That's weird. I don't know. So those up, down, left, right arrows turn into mouse controls. And the mouse control with the keyboard is... I think it's a lot better on... This is super weird. I don't know what I changed on this to disable it, but I normally have this as mouse controls. But anyways, you'd be able to use those arrows to move the mouse around, and you primarily use that for smaller motions. But I've been using this vertical ergonomic mouse to great effect, and one of these, which I highly recommend a lot, and it works extremely well, and it's fast enough that you don't feel stupid reaching for it. But using those, I guess I just haven't touched this mouse assist layer in a long time. Now, the other thing is there's some keys that I rarely reach on that layer, and you can press this combination to access those keys real quick, print screen and scroll lock. And then we've of course got the boot down here. So something that's intentionally far to reach or difficult to reach, I need to do done and then press this button to get into boot mode. And it's intentional so that I don't accidentally hit it if I flub some keys. These are also features of Easy AVR that are very, very useful. And then also for hard to reach keys, imagine what I have to do to activate caps lock. That's how I feel about caps lock, That's so I would basically have to do this and then reach under this hand and then hit this button down here to get to it. I hit something. I also have Vim keys running on this browser. It's a Vixen. Vim Vixen is running on this Firefox. So that's how I usually control the browser. Hey, Odni Helibo. Let me know if the audio sounds weird or anything. So where was I? Okay, so kind of difficult to reach keys, intentionally difficult to reach, and some of these are out of the way on purpose. But that's pretty much the first layer, I think. This shift insert has saved me a number of times actually, so it's kind of a useful thing to have around. But I think that's it for the first layer. So next we go to layer 2, and this is again quite accessible with that right press on the right move of the thumb. And that gets us to these special keys, special character keys, which is the shifted number row keys, which was actually the hardest thing. So this took the longest for me to figure out. And the answer was, for me, it was mnemonics. So previously I think I removed it. Yeah, previously I had just a number row all the way across, and then the shifted number row all the way across. So it was, bang, at, hash, all the way across here. And that was something that I realized didn't work well for me. I felt like mechanically it should have worked just fine because I was reaching up and hitting those keys if I was hitting shift on the number row, but it just didn't work, and it was slow. And so I figured out that these mnemonics were the best way to get it going, to make it easier to remember. So R for ampersand, I for asterisk. The caret was kind of this greater than symbol because it's kind of shaped the same way. M for mark, B for bang, D for dash, G for grave. I think T is tilde. Yeah, that's a T, right? Yeah. See, I don't even remember the layout some of these times. It's all mechanical, which is kind of a blessing and a curse. It's like if you type a password enough, you don't even know what the password is. You have to open up a notepad and then type it out because you don't know. It becomes a mechanical motion, and that is the ideal. That is the goal. The object is to make it so that you just press the button. The object is to make it so you don't even think of this keyboard. That your interface becomes immediate to the computer, rather than what buttons do I need to press on the keyboard. You need to think it and then press it without even thinking. You think, I want to move my cursor around, I want to switch tabs, and then it just happens. It's something that you do automatically instead of think about. And that's one of the things about these 40% is people think that they have to spend a lot of time learning the layout and then trying to figure out what would be better and how do I add more complexity to it, which if you've stuck with me or any of my vlogs, that's the problem. Complexity is the problem. Don't overcomplicate things. But if things can be complicated and they can still be fast, sure, why not? If you can adjust and adapt and learn these things, then you will get wicked fast. You will get insanely fast, and people will make fun of you. But that's just fine because you'll be getting a lot of work done anyways. Some of these are, that's a P, so that works. Plus is P, A is an @ sign because it's kind of shaped the same way, whatever. Some of these macros are, so this is like an email address macro. All it does is print my email address. I probably use it more than any other macro actually. And then Alt F4 is a common macro to have, pretty useful. F2, I think this was here for, this was a blank spot like this, and I think I just dropped it in here one of these days for, I forget what it's for. It does something in Excel. And then F5 is obviously useful in a lot of cases. Normally in the browser I can just hit R for reload, but some tools actually require F5. Where was I? So this is not, you might notice these are not, these are just mechanical shortcuts. Much like these two right here, these are just convenient. They're easy to get to. These are just easy to get to. So this is not D for $sign or anything like that. It's just my pinky, and I press it so much, or pressed it so much when I was on when I was using or coding in Python, that it was just faster to have it right here. And then it was, I think I needed it so much I put it on the first layer. Yeah, there it is. See? So now I press that on the first layer, so it's kind of even easier to get to. And I don't really have an answer for that if that's inconvenient for you, or if you don't use $, it'll fit in here somewhere. I don't know. So the number layer. So the number layer is, yeah, this was where I had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 across here, and then I had the shifted, bang at hash all the way across here. And especially like ampersand, I would always forget what number ampersand was. Stuff I used infrequently, so being able to remember that as R for amp or sand, and then E for equals, and T for tilde, just makes a lot more sense. Let's see what else. So function layer, function numbers, I have had very rare use for, and this is the most recent design, and it's working really well. Normally, previously I had this split across in 5 segments. It would just count up to 5 and then up to 10 over here, because F11 and F12 weren't that often used. But in this case, I've found that keeping it in this 4 segment makes a lot more sense, because that's what it is on the normal layout. Is you've got F1 through F4 and then a space, and then F5 through F6 and then a space. If I had any of this to do over again, I might put this F1 layer down here. Like I might put this under my the home row, but I don't know. It's been working just fine, and I use it infrequently. So there's odd moments where I'll have to do like F2. I just dropped it on layer 2. I don't think there's any other F function combination keys up here, but it's very infrequent that I need one of these, so I want it to be memorable, so I don't have to, I'm not learning muscle memory to get to these. It's just when it pops into my head or when I need it, I want it to be there, and I want it to be as familiar as possible. So I've got these Alt, Shift, and Control are all in the same spot, and they're in a familiar 4-segment layout, so it's just easier that way. This combination was actually a kind of an interesting one. I normally don't like doing modifiers like this, but combination modifiers. So in this case, I'm pressing this button for layer 2, and then I'm holding down this button right here. So I wind up doing a motion like this, and then after you lock that layer, you can release the thumb, and you're still in that mode. But the point is, you don't want to be modifying on the same hand, or you want to hold keys on the same hand as little as possible. So this was kind of convenient, moving the thumb to the right and then pressing down on this button that's a little below the home row. But again, I use it so infrequently, it hasn't really been a problem. So this is working out extremely well for accessing those function layers. The mouse assist layer, I think I already covered this. I think that's just about everything. The page up and page down are here. Again, this section on the left is mainly for when you're mousing around with your right hand and then you want to have some function keys on your left hand. Let's see. And the numpad layer. So numbers were an annoyance, and I actually forgot that I did this on the left hand side. That's actually kind of convenient. Interesting. I forgot about that. So accessing numbers, again, I had this shut off before because I didn't want to do chording on the same hand. But it was just press down this with your palm, which I don't know if you can see that. This button right here, I'm just activating it just with my palm by pressing down. And then once you do that, you get number rows right under your fingertips. So there's your home position for your fingers. So you're right on that numpad. You've got that middle finger on your 5 on the numpad as soon as you press this down. And as soon as you press that down, you've got numbers. You've got numbers everywhere. And this is probably the most intuitive way of doing numbers that I've run into. Now, as I said, like if you're doing that, if you're in that gamer layer, you don't want to be switching out into this number row in order to activate these numbers over here. You want this to be a familiar layout for when you're gaming. So that's kind of a deviation from the standard number layout. But from here you've got a pretty basic number pad layout, and backspace is convenient to have, as is enter. And tab also works out pretty well. And having an enter on the key here, or the thumb press, where you can just activate it with your palm by just pressing down, works pretty well too. But there's not a lot to be said about this, except that it's very useful, and it took me an embarrassingly long amount of time to figure out that this was a good way to do it. Considered a dead key. So the only dead key. Did you consider a dead key? Also 11 is nice for Firefox, and F1 is sometimes nice. Fugitive in Vim has it mapped to help. Yeah. F1 is help in so many things, and it's my primary gripe with most like laptop keyboards is F1 is next to the escape. So when I hit escape in Vim or something, or hit escape just in general, I hit F1 and then it freezes and starts opening up a help program or something. I'm not sure what you mean by dead key. My familiarity with dead keys is in international layouts when you press that key and it does nothing, but it's meant to chord with another key. So it doesn't do anything until you press another key. I can see how something like that would be useful. I like the idea of sticky keys, where you only just tap the modifier and then move on to press the key that you want modified. But once I started modifying with my thumbs, thumbs exclusively, I haven't had any problems. So I haven't. I fix things when there's a problem, when a problem needs to be addressed, and if I'm not having a problem, I kind of don't fix things. That's why this keyboard has stuck the way it's stayed the way that it stayed for so long. It's because it's just been working well. I went from making a keyboard a month probably to this being my keyboard for the past 2-3 years, I guess, almost 3 years. I'm not sure. So it's a good design, and I haven't had any problems with it. But well, I actually think that's the entire layout. I think I might be done. So last updated, in August. But I have some updates now, so I think that's it. I just wanted to. I know this was a requested thing to go over my my 40% layout. Again, this is not something that you should strive for. This is not an accomplishment. This is not an achievement. If you only write prose, and you're probably not going to need all these function keys. You're not going to need super access to these keys. If you only write prose, you might even be okay with like a 30%. I try to use my keyboard for as much control of the computer as possible. But I still use the mouse after the mouse got more handy. So like this mouse, this Evolent vertical mouse, and then this trackball, which is a super cheap trackball, but it's very, very good. I've got 3 of these at this point. They were excellent solutions to the mousing problem, and once I had excellent solutions, I just stopped working on alternative solutions. I'm not going to waste time messing around with something because it's there, because it's available for me to mess around with. But like stuff like this, this is kind of an aggressive change that I'd be interested to do, just to kind of see how it goes. Because changing HJKL is something that should technically, like ergonomically, it should take place. So let me know if you have any questions about the layout, or any recommendations, or want any tips on your layout. I can only tell you what I've learned, and the primary thing that I've learned is chord as little as possible, and if you must, chord with your thumbs. and then chord as little on the same hand as possible. So always try to alternate chord with one hand and then press with the other, chord with this hand and then press with that hand. Just try to keep as little stress on your hands as possible and minimize motion as much as possible. That and maximizing the home row. So maximizing where your fingers already lay is extremely important, because that gives you insane speed. And that's where you get to the point where things become automatic, where you're not even thinking about it, you're just pressing it. It's just immediate. Like this numpad. Numpad's super fast. And every other solution I had, including playing the numbers out across horizontally, it's just not as fast as this numpad. Now I do find that when numpadding, I would prefer this to be like a grid layout, but it's kind of overkill to change it to a grid layout just for that. And this gamer layer, I haven't messed around with it too much, but I need to. Maybe I'll play some more Duskers or something like that. So I think that's about it. Yes, I really like the thumb side switches, and you're right, dead keys are when you can press the key and it will give you the opportunity to type some other keys to get some other special characters. Yeah, that's I can see, you know, I've done international layouts before, and I know it gets really complicated with some of the additional markings, but English is comparatively simple. It's just stupid in actual grammar. Why don't you like chorded keys? Basically, any chord. I have an RSI, a hand injury from typing, and the thing that I found aggravates it the most is chording. And if you go online and look up any kind of ergonomic keyboard stuff and look up chording, you will find that it is to be avoided in probably every case. So reducing chording is always going to be better for your hands and less stress on your hands. Now, there are some people who do, like Sali, he does zero chording, like absolutely none. And he's probably right for it, but I haven't had sufficient issue for me to get to that point yet. And I've found that thumb chording provides an adequate solution for it. And these are a recent design, the paddle design. I just added it. Just finished these the other day, actually, and they're much improved over the previous design, which required hot glue and just kind of took up more space than was really necessary. But I've used these paddles for over a year at this point, and they've been very good for speed and, again, just reducing motion. You know, instead of moving my hand over to the left and then pressing down, I just have to move my thumb to the left, and then I activate that modifier key. So it's just better all around. This new design actually has the new design has a layout specifically designed for the Signum series. So it's spaced for the Signum. So this is for a 3.0. However, I have spacing for the Signum 3.1 model. I don't know if this is going to work. Oh, I guess I probably have to plug in my keyboard for it to work. Yeah. I don't know if it's going to fight me on this. Yeah, it's going to fight me. OpenGL on this sometimes is just unhappy. Down, and then render with F6. Yeah, there we go. So this is slightly modified for the Signum 3.1, but these files are all on my GitHub, so they're accessible for being able to print out whichever triad you need, and it doesn't require any glue to mount. So that was kind of the primary feature. But I think that's about it, and I gotta get going. Good going over this. I'm sorry it took so long, but I hope you guys have found something interesting or useful in this, and hope it helps you build your own layouts and macros and all kinds of good stuff, and just give you better hand health overall, so you don't have to type as much. Alright, I'll catch you all later. Bye.